Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we've got some more fantasy football lineup advice for Week 3 NFL action with 5 must-sit running backs here for this week's games. I've already got my top 5 must-start running backs and wide receivers out for this week, in addition to some extra and additional trade content that I posted on Monday and Tuesday here. So make sure you go check that stuff out here. But today, again, the name of the game is 5 running backs that I think we should be trying to keep out of our lineups here. So without further ado, drop down, give today's video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We're growing, the community is expanding, and we're always looking for more fantasy players that are looking for some help in trying to win those leagues, as we want to be the most interactive fantasy channel and community out there. So thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. Let's hit that intro and get straight in to our first player. Alrighty, here we go with our first player on the list for today's episode. Mike Davis, Cordell Patterson, whoever it is. Falcons running backs, I'm not playing them here in Week 3 NFL action. They've got a stout defense on the other side of the football with the New York Giants. And although the Giants are always prone to potentially having some sloppy football games and letting the other team hang around because of offensive turnovers, this defensive unit in this front seven is too stout to be starting running backs who are incredibly touchdown dependent. Last week, the Falcons were overachievers. They were able to produce more output than they should have been able to. Why did that happen? The Buccaneers were blowing them out. It was late in the game, and obviously the Bucs were dropping back into pass coverage. That opens up lanes for draws and opportunities for unique players like Cordell Patterson to come in and run those patterns and get more space than they should have had against the Tampa Bay defense that is incredibly stout against the run. This is not an ascending rushing offense. The Falcons have their very real and very significant limitations here to how high they can go. Davis, Patterson, whoever gets the lead touches this week, I expect it to still be Mike Davis, because I think that although Cordero is a part of this offense and an integral player there, he's more of a situational piece who's still being kind of worked into the group here. They are still going to be capped. This is not a situation or an offense I'm buying into right now, and I think that for now, you're best off just playing your Calvin Ridleys and your Kyle Pittses and hoping that that passing offense, if an upside, that volume from them trailing in games and being a bad football team, will ultimately benefit you on the back end. Darrell Henderson for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Darrell, we just talked about his matchup is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here this week, and going back to Atlanta, the situation we just covered, they were the team playing the Bucs last week. They had more success than was expected, but I kind of talked through why that was the case. They weren't necessarily playing the run. They were backed up playing soft coverage, trying to prevent the Falcons from scoring over the top quickly. That's going to net and open up some run lanes for those draw plays and such. We already went over that. That will not be the case here for Darrell Henderson or Sony Michel. If Darrell Henderson can't go, he's dealing with some rib cartilage issues right now. So if that injury persists and holds him out of the game, they're going to do a checkup on him on Friday and see if he is making any progress towards being able to start. Again, if that's not the case, Sony Michel then gets penciled into the spot, and I am not any more inclined to start him here. The Rams are going to be there right now. They're half-point favorites to play or against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. So clearly a much different spread than we saw last week against the Falcons. Essentially what that means, if you're not an avid sports bettor, is the Rams are expected to play a very tight game against Tampa this week. You're going to be playing your traditional tight 4 quarters of football here, and there is not going to be a situation that I expect to play out where Tampa Bay or the Rams are up big late in this game. So Tampa's going to be playing their traditional defensive sets. Devin White, Levante David running downhill, crashing those gaps in the offensive line and blowing up holes. That's going to make a really dependent touchdown performance for whatever running back gets the start here for the Rams this week. That's not a situation you want to roll the dice on in fantasy, because that elevates your risk significantly, and I think the floor is rather shaky. He might have his biggest down week of the season to this point. Michael Carter, Ty Johnson, Tevin Coleman, all the Jets running backs. 3 straight weeks make my must-sit list here. They've kind of had some brutal matchups to start the season off. Last week, obviously, they had the Patriots. Now they've got the Broncos. And then week 1, it was just a feeling out process for me, so that wasn't something I wanted to experiment with. Denver is another swarming defense, great pass rush. They're going to put pressure on Zach Wilson, probably take the ball away from him. This isn't going to be a game where the game script is going to favor a running attack very much for this Jets offense. Michael Carter does have the best end of the stick here, as he is the passing down back and the guy that can catch passes out of the backfield, but he still hasn't been overly utilized in that area of the game to the point where it makes me feel comfortable or have reasonable optimism for him to be a productive player here this week. So Denver's going to be a tough out for the Jets this week. I think the Broncos will end up starting out this season 3-0, and Michael Carter should have a down week here. Not someone I expect to find the end zone. And again, I think that yardage total and those overall rushing attempts will be pretty low for the Jets because they'll be trailing pretty early on in this game. James Robinson. This Jacksonville offense is a disaster. Urban Meyer has completely ruined the fantasy element of this run game. Carlos Hyde has slowly, over the first 2 weeks, seen regressions in his snap counts here, but James Robinson still hasn't been productive with the opportunities he's been given. This offensive line is so bad that Trevor Lawrence is running for his life. There's not much space to run the football, and as a result, the offense has become incredibly inefficient. Trevor Lawrence completed under 50% of his passes last week, This is a situation where you've got Chandler Jones, you've got J.J. Watt, two legitimate veterans and star players on the defensive side of the ball that are going to be directly impacting the play of that offensive line. This is going to be an ugly game. I think the Cardinals are just going to run straight through the Jaguars. They're not going to have an answer for Kyler Murray. He's going to hang points all over them for the entire game. And that, in turn, is going to result in a really light rushing attack from the Jags because they're just not going to have the luxury to make that part of their offensive game plan. So, sit James Robinson. He is no longer a fantasy running back, too. Best case scenario, you're looking at a touchdown-dependent flex play. That's what I've said about basically all of these players this week. The difference being, I think a Darrell Henderson has legitimate RB2 value on a week-to-week basis because of his situation, to be honest. James Robinson's situation has gotten to a point, his usage has gotten to a point. I've lost my confidence, and I don't think that there's the elite upside that we saw from him last year where he was one of fantasy's best running backs. And then lastly here, Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals, a tough matchup on the other side of the football. Now, we might not see T.J. Watt, which makes this look a little bit more intriguing and a little bit more favorable for him, but this Pittsburgh Steelers front seven, they still have speed at the linebacking core, and if TJ can't go, he's dealing with a groin injury right now, they still have depth in their front four that should make this still a very, very tough matchup. The Bengals offensive line is atrocious. They are not good at run blocking or pass protection. Joe Burrow's already been sacked almost 10 times this season. Not good. Not the way you want to bring your quarterback who just came off a nasty knee injury back into the swing here, but Joe is going to get volume. We know he's going to get his touches. I think this should still be a closely competitive football game because the Steelers' offense is so inefficient in its own right. I just think that this front seven is going to bottleneck this run game and force Joe to drop back and throw the ball because ultimately the Steelers' strength is pass rush and getting after the quarterback, and when that's your opponent's weakness, they should have a field day here. So they're going to take the run game away, make the Bengals pass the football, and I think at the end of the day, if Joe doesn't find the end zone one or even two times, you're looking at a really dicey floor for him this week. Alrighty, those were 5 must-sit running backs for Week 3 NFL action. If you've got any questions about your lineups, about your fantasy leagues this week, drop those down in the comment section below. I'd be happy to get back to you. Myself or Eric will answer your questions and your comments and try and help you get the edge for your fantasy matchups this week. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Remember, click that subscribe button if you're new around here and turn that bell on so you're never late for an episode. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.